Hello and good morning or afternoon, depending on when you are watching this webinar. I am Mary Hudson, Chamber President here in Hutchinson, Minnesota, and I am joined today by Ben King, who's an attorney and partner with Kraft Walzer. Thank you for joining me today, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk today about succession planning for businesses, and I think that it's really important that no matter the size of your business, we need to talk about what's going to happen if you're disabled, if you die, or you simply want to retire. What happens to your blood, sweat, and tears you have put into your business that may be providing for other people besides yourself. So today I've asked Ben to join me. He is, as I said, an attorney and partner with Kraft Walzer to talk about succession planning, because I can regurgitate, but it's way better for you to hear from the expert. So we're going to talk specifically for our business community today, Ben. And I'll add that Ben is a graduate of the Hutchinson Leadership Institute. He's the vice president of the Hutchinson JCs. He's a member of the Hutchinson EDA finance team, a Rotarian, and McLeod County Pheasants Forever member. And I do want to put this disclaimer out for everyone that this webinar does not constitute attorney-client advice, and it may not reflect information for your personal situation. So as in any case, you need to consult with your own attorney for specific information regarding your individual circumstances, right? Okay, so Ben, let's get started by defining what is a succession plan and who needs to have such a thing.
Sure. So a succession plan is something that you have in place for your business in the event that you can no longer run it, whether it's your death, medical emergency, or you just want to be done, retire, what have you. And if you don't have a plan in place, it's a very scary and nerve-wracking time for your family members. So every business owner needs to have some sort of plan in place, regardless of the size of your business.
Yep. So a succession plan tells people what?
Tells people who takes over in the event that you are no longer able to perform your duties that you perform in your business. And so it looks like something as simple as a power of attorney, or a complex set of documents that you've put together with your team of advisors, laying out how the transition is going to work for various scenarios, right? And so it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. There are many different ways to put together a succession plan, and that just all depends on your circumstances and the size and type of business that you have. The type of business entity that you have will largely drive your succession planning, or whether or not you're a sole proprietor or if you have other partners involved.
When we talk about succession planning, it's who's going to succeed, who's going to come after, what's going to happen after you retire, you're disabled, or perhaps that you die. And it sounds pretty scary and intimidating to a lot of people. And in fact, when you and I first sat down, in my head, I was thinking of a number of about maybe 20% of businesses have a succession plan. You thought it might be a little bit higher, but you did some research.
Yeah, and you were much closer to being right than I was. In fact, it's about 15 to 20% that actually have a plan in place. So that's better than nothing, right? But it might not also be a complete plan either.
Right.
It could just be that, quick fix power of attorney, but if once you pass away, your power of attorney is no longer valid. So if you didn't plan for the event that of your death, you don't have a complete plan in place. So it's a really terrifying number to look up and down Main Street where we're both located, and to think there are a lot of people that don't have anything in place here.
Right. I happen to know that there's 133 parcels on Main Street from the bank at the bridge all the way down to 4th Avenue. And so out of 133, maybe 20 have a plan. And what I want to tell people today, and I'm hoping that you and I can relay that, yeah, it's going to take some time and it might take some resources to do it, but the end result is going to be better sleep and a lot fewer questions and a lot less expense on the back end if you don't have this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because, you know, we are all invincible.
We like to think so, don't we?
Right. But, you know, even in Hutchinson in the last couple of years, we can, I even personally can vouch for the fact that things happen that you are not planning for and you don't see them coming. And usually people don't see the bus that they're, you know, we joke, right? If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, but you usually don't see that bus. So I think that it's really important that we're talking about this today. Is it expensive to create a business plan?
That all depends, right? On, again, how complex it needs to be. It could range anywhere from, you know, maybe a few $100s to a few $1,000s. But at any rate, doing something on the front end is going to be much more cost effective than trying to have to fix things on the back end. So, you know, let's say that you have a medical emergency that you didn't plan for and you don't have any plan in place, and you got to get something done right away, and you're incapacitated. Well, it's going to cost a lot of money to get the necessary legal documents in place and or court orders in place to give somebody authority to act on your behalf in the event that you didn't have any sort of planning done. And so it's really important that you start your succession plan as soon as possible. I like to tell people, you know, as soon as you form a business, you need to have a succession plan in place. And when people come to us to form a business, we already start to lay down, you know, those tracks, right? We start to put them on the right track of saying, okay, if you pass away, this is, you know, how we get your membership interest transferred to the people that need to have them according to your wishes, right? But so doing that on the front end is much more cost effective than having to do an emergency situation on the back end that you didn't plan for. Because I'm sorry.
Efficient. Like, right. I think if something happens on this end and now everybody's going through all the hoops and the rings of fire they have to jump through and the documentation that has to happen. In the meantime, the business either needs to continue on or be managed in some way. And if you don't have the authority to do that, that's really scary, right?
Terrifying. And if you're incapacitated, you know, might have to put a temporary conservatorship in place in order to get the necessary powers transferred to somebody to take over for you. And that all could be avoided, you know, with a simple power of attorney, right? Which is, you know, super cheap compared to having to start a conservatorship.
Okay, so let's talk about the difference between some of the situations people should be thinking about. Now, we've talked about disability, retirement, and death. Those would be the three situations that you need to plan for. Share some of the differences for each of those.
Sure. So for disability, you know, again, we've already touched on this a few times, but the most simple thing that you should have in place is a power of attorney. That's a durable power of attorney, so that once you become incapacitated, the power of attorney still continues on, and that would continue on until your death. And you know, it may be that you're temporarily disabled, so once you come out of it, you know, the power of attorney would no longer be needed, but it would still be there, you know, in the event that things took a turn for the worse again. Death is, you know, it's final, right? There's no turning back from that. And for there, you know, it's, if you haven't already transferred your, you know, if you haven't retired and you're still have ongoing concerns with the business and you're the boss, you know, it's largely part of what your estate plan is how you transfer your business ownership to the next line, whether that's your heirs or somebody else that you were hoping to take over. And that can be as simple as transfer on death certificates within the business entity documents, whether you're an LLC or a corporation. If you're a sole proprietor, you would just put that as part of your will and or trust or whatever you have for that. And retirement, that looks a lot different, right? It's a long process of trying to figure out, am I going to pass this on to one of my heirs, one of my employees? What does that look like? Is somebody going to buy me out? How does that buyout work? Do they do a leverage buyout? Do they do seller financing? Do they borrow the money from the bank to get the money to buy me out? What does that look like? And they all take some planning. Retirement probably takes the most planning though, right? Because if you're going to go through the process of selling your business, you've got to get your business up to snuff to have somebody take a look at it to sell. If you just hand them over your tax documents, well, we're all playing sort of a game to get our taxes to be as low as they possibly can be, right? With the meaning of the tax code. But that doesn't really look good to, for somebody opening your books to say, well, you've got no profit here because you're, doing things for tax efficiency reasons. Your business really isn't worth that much. Well, you can change the way that you're doing your taxes for a couple of years. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay higher taxes, but your business is going to be much more attractive to a potential buyer, right? So when people are looking to retire, they should be looking to retire, start that process 2-3 years before they actually really want to, in order to get things in place to make things looking a lot better. So there are multiple differences in each situation, but the commonality is having a plan, right?
Right. So yeah, when it's time to retire, that's too late to start planning for it, right?
Absolutely.
So I like to have action plans, steps that people can take right away. So somebody's listening to this today and they're like, oh, what are the first things that I need to think about in the process?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do is to at least start having conversations with people, right? Whether that's with the people you think are going to take over for you in the event that any of these 3 things happen to you, or talking to your trusted advisors, right? And your attorney, your accountant, your financial advisor. If you don't have any of those, you should at least have conversations with all those people, right? At least, get to know some of those people. Because not only can they help you plan, but they might be able to help you retire too, to say, hey, look, we've got a couple of clients that are interested in expanding into your business area or looking to get into your business area. So maybe you guys should sit and talk and see if you guys can't work something out. But that's the first thing, is to start having conversations. And the next thing is to get the simple things on paper, right? The stopgaps, your power of attorney in place in case there's a medical emergency, some sort of transfer document in the event that you get hit by a bus crossing Main Street to go have lunch. And then, some sort of retirement plan, what the ideal situation looks like, so you can start mapping that out.
Right, because you need to have an idea of what your needs and wants are going to be, what your expectation is, your own timeline. Because if you're working with somebody else, I think you described it to me as a dance, right? You kind of got to do a little bit of a cha-cha to figure out how to land in the right place for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
You also told me something else the other day that I thought was really interesting. If you have a business partner, but there's no succession plan that's documented, you can't actually take over, and vice versa. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that most of the time when we're talking about something like this, we're making an assumption that others will make the right assumptions. And that certainly isn't a plan.
Yeah, absolutely not. And so, kind of the most common thing that you see, especially in smaller businesses, is that there'll be a partnership, but no partnership documents, right? We're just a handshake deal. We're partners. We split things 50-50. It's been that way on the tax rules forever and ever. Amen. And that's how we operate. Well, if let's say you and I are partners, Mary, and I pass away, my partnership interest, my 50% doesn't just automatically go to you if we don't have anything in writing. My 50% would go to my heirs. So let's say it's my spouse that survives me. So now she's your new 50% business partner. Well, you and I may be partners and maybe we've had dinners together with our spouses, but we have no idea if we'd really want to be in business with our spouses. We know that we work really well together, but I don't know if I'm going to work well with Ben's wife. Maybe our, what's the communication styles that we talk about in leadership? What are those called?
Oh, yeah, the voices.
The voices we have. Maybe our voices are way different and we'll never be able to coexist, right? Or figure out how to coexist. So that's a problem for you, right? You wanted to be in business with me. You didn't want to be in business necessarily with my spouse. So now I got to figure out how to get that 50% to me or to somebody that I want to be in business with, right?
Okay.
And maybe I would like to think that my spouse would say, yeah, I get it. You can pay me a reasonable value for Ben's 50%. But, maybe I didn't leave her with any sort of life insurance or anything like that to help take care of her ongoing needs. And she gets, super spiteful at me over the fact, and then she starts taking it out on you and holds the business hostage, right? Well, I'm just collect my, 50% of all the revenues, and you just have to deal with it. Unless you're going to pay me, an exorbitant amount to get out of this. So that's a real problem. And again, there are solutions for that, and they can look, they can be amicable and pretty easy to solve. But again, we've got to go through probably some sort of court process to figure that out. If I didn't do any estate planning, because I was already a poor, business planning, I didn't do any estate planning either. Well, now I've got to get a probate going, probably to transfer my interest. And then from there, we got to figure out how to sell it. There might be some litigation involved between you and my spouse over that. So that's very costly, right? Thousands of dollars, potentially tens of thousands of dollars to resolve something that we could have put together for, like I said, a couple thousand, at most maybe, to sit down and figure that out on the front end. If we get an attorney involved to help us do that.
Which is a business expense, which helps your taxes.
Right.
Going back to the other point. Yeah, I think this is really interesting. You were even talking about who has access to the checking account.
Right. So yeah, that's where the power of attorney is a big important document here. So let's just say that I have a sole proprietorship in town where I'm making widgets and selling them on Main Street, and I become disabled, and my bank account's at one of the big national banks. Maybe one of the bankers there knows who my spouse is, but again, all the red tape and bureaucracy and the policies are going to say, I'm sorry, I know that you guys were married, but I don't have any record of you being a part of this business, and so I can't let you access this account. And that would be a huge problem, for ongoing expenses of the business, trying to pay vendors and things like that. Maybe they give you 30, 60-day grace period to try and sort things out, but that's not really a lot of time to get things in place that you might need to get in place to get access to the bank account. When we talk about emergency court actions, that's still days away, right? I mean, we can't just get into court a lot of times the next day to sort these things out, especially when it's not life or death.
Right.
situation, right? The court is going to say, well, yeah, I get it. You have an emergency to access your business, but I've got, murders and other things to sort out. So
Right.
take a seat in the back. And so, yeah, just having, again, a simple power of attorney that doesn't cost, maybe $100 to get put together, is a super cost saver than not having it at all and having to, again, go to court and spend thousands of dollars to get something in place so that you can just simply access the bank account.
Yeah, I think that we don't think about these things. Again, I think that a lot of people make assumptions like, I don't have to do it yet. It's not going to happen to me. I don't need to do that because everybody knows that my spouse can take care of this or that my right-hand person can. And that's not always the case.
Correct. And I mean, think of the times we live in now where a pandemic comes and you get afflicted by that said virus and you didn't have anything in place. Never thought it could happen, but it's affecting thousands of people.
Thousands and thousands of people. Yeah, even here in our community. We are certainly not immune to that. So I know that people don't like to talk about death, but we've seen it, we've heard it, the stories that between the two of us, it's really ugly when you have to manage the loss of someone you love or care about and all the other stuff. So I think that people know that they need to think about it or talk about it, but we get all squirmy, we get nervous. I have a friend who go, oh, I'm sweaty, I don't wanna, right? But there's probably some planning documents that people could put in place. And you've talked a little bit about it, but for the death portion of it, let's talk about that. I'm just, I always go down into the details. How do I know where your accounts are? How do I know what you wanted? Talk to us about that.
Sure. So again, you should have some sort of transfer documents in place for your interests to go to who you think they should go to, right? So that that can be an easy and smooth transition and something that your heirs don't have to worry about. Another big thing to have in place is some sort of life insurance policy so that there's money in place to take care of any sort of transitional issues, whether that's capital for the next line of people to keep continuing the ongoing concerns of the business or to help somebody buy somebody out. So let's go back to the situation where you and I are partners and we didn't have anything in place to transfer my membership interests, but we had life insurance policies on each other for X amount of dollars, right? So that when I passed away, you got a death benefit of $200,000. Well, you could then use that $200,000 to purchase, presumably purchase my 50% interest back from my spouse. You make her whole, you get my 50% interest so that you can go out and either find another partner that you want to be in line with, or just take the business on in your own direction. So that would be another a huge thing to get in place, is some sort of life insurance policy. And yeah, it's another insurance expense, but again, you might be able to write that off as a business expense. I'm not a tax guy, but you could take that up with your accountant, who we should also be talking about to figure out, again, what might the value of the business be worth, to figure out, how much of a life insurance policy you might need to put in place. So transfer documents for your membership interest, life insurance to take care of your spouse if they're dependent on your income in some way, shape, or form. And then a pile of documents put in place, or not even a pile, but at least, like a red binder, like you guys have at the chamber, to say, these are all of our access codes to all of the different websites or accounts that we need to get into, the usernames and passwords. These are, our key vendors that, get paid on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, yearly basis. Where we find, all of the books of the company and how to get access to those, where the accounts or the bank accounts are. It's not uncommon for a business to have, a few bank accounts And if you have trusted advisors, who those trusted advisors are that have been helping you run this business for years and years. And, put that in absolutely a safe place, but tell somebody how to get access to that in the event that you aren't able to tell them anything, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's absolutely critical to, again, simple things that you could do right away would be power of attorney for while you're living, the red binder to figure out where all those things are in the event that you can't access them anymore, and then life insurance in place. And with the life insurance, it's a simple, transfer of your membership interest document.
Okay. Yeah, I giggle when you say that because we've talked about it, where you can put it in a safe place, but people have to be able to find it and know where it is if they need it, right?
Yes.
And you brought up our red binder. So yeah, everybody knows in the office where to go to get the information if something happens to me. So different but similar is that we are a nonprofit, and we do have a number of nonprofits in our community, especially those that have staff. Those are the ones where I think things are a little bit different than, some of the more volunteer-based. If something happens, everyone's going to be sad, but things can go on. So let's just talk briefly about what nonprofits should be doing.
Yeah, so the board should be aware of, again, where all of these, even if it's like a chamber, you have staff and all that, there's still a board, right?
Yep.
That is sort of managing the nonprofit. So they should know where to find all those documents, and, sort of what everybody's job duties descriptions are, so that they can try to figure out somebody to fill that role in the event that you aren't able to for a period of time or forever in the event of your death. And then be able to figure out how to replace that person. So, most nonprofits that have a staff, the board is well aware of what, at least, how many staff are in place, and sort of maybe high level what they might be doing. And hopefully another staff person can sort of fill in any gaps there. But I think of, like our Pheasants Forever organization, if some of our key board members passed away, we've got minutes and things of so we can go back and look at the minutes, but it might be beneficial for us to have the board member that's been there for since the inception of the group to write down, this is kind of how we've done things and why we've done things,
right?
And what should happen with the maybe nest egg of money that your nonprofit has built up, and dole that out according to the mission, or
Hopefully this has been really helpful to our business friends. Let's just wrap this up. Number one, thank you so very much for meeting with me and talking through this. Obviously, people can get a hold of you if they have questions, or they can go to their own attorney that they may have in place. But if you don't, you should probably work on that. So the first 3 steps, let's give them those 3 steps that they need to do right today or this week or weekend if they don't have a succession plan.
Right. So first would be to get the power of attorney put in place and the transfer of your membership interest put into place. Second is to start having conversations with those people who you think that might be taking over for you. If you don't have those conversations, to at least start talking to trusted advisors. And if you don't have them, form them, find them, and have those conversations. And then third is to lay out what your ideal situation looks like as far as your retirement, and then what happens to your business when you die.
Perfect. All right, some easy steps for people to take. Start having the conversation now, people, because I care about all of you, and I don't want you to be in a situation, or your family members to be in a situation where they're left juggling not only the grief and the loss they feel if something happens to you, but also all the other things that they don't even know about. So all this might have been spurred because of that type of situation. We hope that'll help a lot of people in the end as well. So again, Ben, thank you so very much. You're amazing. I really appreciate your help.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Mary. I appreciate it.